I stood in the middle of Cloverfield's town square, the summer air thick with the smell of grilled corn and cotton candy, my notebook clutched against my chest like a shield. The Cloverfield Centennial Celebration was in full swing, our little Oregon town's biggest event in 100 years. Banners fluttered above Main Street, kids darted through the crowd with sparklers, and the local band was butchering a cover of Sweet Home Alabama. I'd spent months organizing this, pouring my heart into every detail as the lead reporter for the Cloverfield Chronicle. This was my moment to shine, to prove I was more than just Lila Harper, the girl who never left town. But as I scanned the crowd, my eyes landed on my cousin Theo standing by the dunk tank, his smirk sharp enough to cut glass. He was holding my grandfather's old brass compass, the one I'd carried since I was 10, the one I'd left on my desk in the newsroom, and he was tossing it casually like it was a cheap trinket. "Lila, you made it," Theo called, his voice dripping with mock surprise loud enough to turn heads. "Thought you'd be too busy playing boss to show up." The crowd around him chuckled, and my cheeks burned. Theo had a way of making me feel small, even in a town where everyone knew my name. He was 3 years older, the golden boy who'd left Cloverfield for a fancy finance job in Portland, only to swoop back for the Centennial like he owned the place. Growing up, he'd always been one step ahead, stealing my ideas, charming my friends, convincing our family I was the sensitive one who couldn't handle pressure. I'd forgiven him every time, chasing the cousinly bond I thought we could have. But that compass in his hand, that wasn't just a keepsake. It was my anchor, a reminder of Grandpa's advice. Find your true north, Lila. No one else can do it for you. I forced a smile weaving through the crowd toward him. "Theo, why do you have my compass?" I asked, keeping my tone light despite the knot in my stomach. He grinned, flipping it in the air, catching it without breaking eye contact. "Found it lying around the newsroom. Figured it'd look better with me tonight." "You don't mind, right? You've got enough on your plate." His words landed like a slap, casual but calculated. The compass wasn't just lying around. It was in my locked drawer next to my notes for the centennial speech I was set to give in an hour. I'd planned to hold it while I spoke to honor Grandpa's memory and tie it to the town's history. Theo knew that. He'd heard me talk about it at family dinners, seen me polish it like it was sacred. "Give it back," I said, my voice firmer now, holding out my hand. The crowd was starting to notice their chatter fading. Theo raised an eyebrow, leaning closer, his breath smelling faintly of beer. "Relax, Lila. It's just a thing. Besides, you're not exactly stealing the show tonight, are you? Let someone else have the spotlight for once." He tucked the compass into his jacket pocket, patted it, and turned to laugh with a group of his old high school buddies, dismissing me like I was a kid throwing a tantrum. My heart pounded a mix of anger and humiliation. This wasn't just about the compass. It was Theo again, taking something that mattered to me and twisting it into a game. Growing up, he'd always done this when I won the school essay contest. He borrowed my topic for his college application and got into Stanford. When I started dating my first boyfriend, Theo suddenly needed him for a group project that ended with them at a concert without me. Our family, my parents, Aunt Karen, Uncle Dave, called it Theo being Theo like it was harmless. I'd spent years swallowing it, convincing myself I was overreacting, that I could win him over with kindness. But standing there, with the centennial crowd buzzing and my speech looming, I felt the weight of every betrayal crash down. Theo wasn't just teasing. He was trying to undermine me right when I was finally stepping into my own. I took a step closer, my voice low but steady. "Theo, I'm not asking. Give me the compass. Now." He turned, his smile faltering for a split second before it hardened. "Or what, Lila? You'll write an article about it. Go ahead. No one cares about your little trinket." He laughed, but his eyes were cold, daring me to push back. I wanted to grab his jacket, rip the compass out, make a scene. But the square was packed. My parents were somewhere in the crowd, probably beaming at Theo's charisma, and my editor Maureen was watching from the press tent, expecting me to keep it together. If I lost it now, I'd be the story, not the centennial. Instead, I turned and walked away, my hands shaking as I gripped my notebook. I headed toward the newsroom trailer, at the edge of the square, needing air, needing a plan. Theo thought he could humiliate me, in front of the whole town, take what was mine, and walk away clean. He was wrong. I didn't know how yet, but I was done letting him win. As I reached the trailer, I glanced back at the stage where I'd soon give my speech. The compass was more than a relic, it was my direction, my proof that I could find my way. And tonight, I was going to take it back one way or another. The newsroom trailer was a cramped metal box at the edge of Cloverfield's town square, humming with the faint buzz of a portable AC unit. Inside, it smelled like stale coffee and printer ink, a familiar comfort that usually grounded me. But tonight, as I shut the door behind me, my hands were still trembling. Theo's smirk burned into my mind. I dropped my notebook on the cluttered desk, trying to steady my breathing. The centennial speech was in 45 minutes, and I was supposed to stand on that stage in front of the whole town and deliver a message about unity and history. How was I supposed to do that when my own cousin had just stolen my compass, my literal and figurative anchor, and made me feel like I didn't belong in my own moment? I sank into the swivel chair, my eyes drifting to the locked drawer where I'd kept the compass. The lock was intact, no scratches, no signs of tampering. Theo hadn't broken in, he'd unlocked it, which meant he'd gotten the key. The only spare was in Maureen's office, and she'd been out of town until this morning. My stomach twisted. Theo had planned this. He'd gone out of his way to take something that mattered to me right before the biggest night of my career. But why to mess with my head? To steal the spotlight like always? Or was there something else going on? I needed answers, but first I needed to focus. The speech wasn't just a performance, it was my chance to prove I was more than Cloverfield's small-town reporter, the one everyone pitied for staying behind while Theo conquered the world. I opened my notebook, flipping to the speech draft, but my eyes caught on something else, a folded piece of paper tucked into the back, not in my handwriting. It was creased like it had been handled repeatedly, and the edges were slightly yellowed. I unfolded it carefully, my pulse quickening. It was a photocopy of a financial statement, dated 3 months ago from a Portland investment firm. Theo's name was at the top, listed as the account holder, but the numbers didn't add up. The balance was negative, deeply negative, 6 figures in the red. Scrawled in the margin, in Theo's messy script, were the words, "Need $200K by August. Centennial Fund." My breath caught. The Cloverfield Centennial had a budget, a big one funded by local businesses, and a state grant. I'd been on the planning committee handling publicity, but Theo had volunteered to oversee the finances, charming the committee with his big city expertise. Was he planning to siphon money from the fund? And what did this have to do with my compass? The trailer door creaked open and I shoved the paper into my pocket, just as my mum stepped inside, her floral dress slightly rumpled from the crowd. "Lila, honey, you okay?" she asked, her brow furrowed. "I saw you talking to Theo by the dunk tank. Looked like he got under your skin again." Her tone was gentle, but there was that familiar undertone, the one that said, "Don't make a fuss. It's just Theo. He took my compass." "Mom," I said, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. "The one Grandpa gave me. He's parading it around like it's his, and he knows what it means to me." Mum sighed, brushing a strand of graying hair from her face. "Theo's just showy. You know how he is. He'll give it back after he's had his fun. Don't let him ruin your big night." She reached for my hand, but I pulled back the financial statement, burning a hole in my pocket. "It's not just the compass," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "He went into my drawer, Mom. He planned this, and I think he's up to something bigger." I hesitated, unsure if I should mention the paper. Mom had always defended Theo ever since we were kids. When he borrowed my science project idea and won the fair, she called it inspiration. When he spread rumors that I'd flunked my SATs, she said he was just teasing. If I showed her the statement, would she even believe me? Lila, you're overthinking this, she said, her voice softening, like she was talking to a child. Theo's under a lot of pressure coming back to Cloverfield after all his success. Maybe he's just trying to feel important tonight. Give him some grace. Grace. I snapped the word sharper than I intended. He's been taking things from me my whole life, Mom. My ideas, my friends, my confidence. And you and Dad always let him. Why is it always my job to give him grace? The trailer felt smaller, the air heavier. Mum's face fell, and for a moment I saw something flicker in her eyes, guilt maybe, or recognition. But she didn't respond, just adjusted her purse strap and glanced at the clock. Your speech is soon, she said quietly. Focus on that. We'll talk about Theo later, okay? She squeezed my shoulder and left the door clicking shut behind her. I sat there alone again, the financial statement crumpled in my pocket. Mom's dismissal stung, but it wasn't new. What was new was the paper and the possibility that Theo's games had escalated beyond personal jabs. If he was planning to steal from the Centennial Fund, he wasn't just hurting me. He was betraying the entire town. But why take my compass? Was it a distraction, a power play, or something else? I needed to find out, but the clock was ticking and the stage was waiting. I stood smoothing my dress and caught my reflection in the trailer's small mirror. My eyes were tired, but there was a spark there, a determination I hadn't felt in years. Theo thought he could push me aside, make me shrink. But I wasn't the kid who let him steal her thunder anymore. I grabbed my notebook, tucked the financial statement deeper into my pocket, and headed back to the square. The speech was my priority, but after that I was going to confront Theo and whatever he was hiding. One way or another I'd find my true north, tonight compass, or no compass. The Cloverfield town square was a sea of faces. As I stepped onto the wooden stage, the spotlight blinding me for a moment. The crowd stretched out under the dusk sky, their chatter fading, as the mayor handed me the microphone. My notebook was tucked under my arm, my speech memorized but feeling heavier than ever. The financial statement in my pocket felt like a live wire, buzzing with questions I couldn't answer yet. Theo was out there somewhere, probably flashing that smug grin, my grandfather's brass compass still in his pocket. I had 30 minutes to deliver this speech, unite the town, and not let anyone see how close I was to unraveling. But as I scanned the crowd, I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't just speaking for Cloverfield tonight. I was speaking for myself to prove I could stand tall even with Theo trying to knock me down. Good evening, Cloverfield. I began, my voice steadier than I felt. Tonight we celebrate 100 years of our town's heart. Its people, its stories, its resilience. The crowd clapped a warm ripple that gave me a moment to breathe. I launched into the speech, weaving in tales of the town's founders, the mill workers who'd built Main Street, the families who'd stayed through floods and recessions. I'd spent weeks researching, interviewing old-timers, crafting every word to honor our history. But without the compass in my hand, the one Grandpa had given me to find my true north, the words felt hollow, like I was borrowing someone else's strength. Halfway through, I spotted Theo near the beer tent, leaning close to a man I didn't recognize. The stranger wore a dark suit, out of place among the flannel shirts and sundresses, and his expression was all business. Theo was talking fast, his hands animated, and then he reached into his jacket, the same pocket where he'd stashed my compass. He didn't pull it out, but his fingers lingered, like he was reassuring himself it was there. The stranger nodded, glanced at his watch, and slipped into the crowd. My voice faltered for a split second, but I caught myself pushing through the next line about the town's first schoolhouse. Who was that guy, and why was Theo so fixated on the compass? I wrapped up the speech with a call to action, asking everyone to share their own Cloverfield stories for a special Chronicle edition. The crowd erupted in applause louder than I'd expected, and I felt a flicker of pride until I saw Theo clapping. His eyes locked on me, his smile more predatory than proud. As I stepped off the stage, the mayor shook my hand, and Maureen, my editor, gave me a nod from the press tent. "Solid work, Lila," she called. "You owned it." I smiled, but my mind was already elsewhere. Theo's meeting with that stranger wasn't a coincidence. It was connected to the financial statement, to the compass, to whatever he was planning. I needed to get closer to Theo, but the crowd was swarming now, the band kicking into a lively jig that sent people dancing. I wove through the chaos, dodging kids with glow sticks and couples swaying to the music. My parents were by the food stalls, Dad waving me over, but I pretended not to see. I couldn't face another lecture about giving Theo grace right now. Instead, I headed for the beer tent, where Theo was now alone, scrolling on his phone. My heart pounded as I approached the financial statement, heavy in my pocket. Confronting him directly was risky. He'd just deny everything and turn it back on me. I needed proof, something concrete to tie him to the Centennial Fund. "Lila, great speech," Theo said. As I reached him, his tone too cheerful, like he hadn't humiliated me an hour ago. He slipped his phone into his pocket and took a swig of his beer. "Didn't know you had it in you to charm a crowd like that." "Thanks," I said, forcing a smile. "Where's the compass, Theo? I saw you playing with it earlier. It's not yours." My voice was calm, but my hands were clenched at my sides. He laughed, leaning back against the tent pole, still hung up on that old thing. "Come on, Lila. It's just a prop. I'll give it back when I'm done." He patted his jacket pocket again, and I noticed something new. A faint bulge, not just the compass, but something else rectangular like a small notebook or envelope. Was it related to the financial statement? To the stranger he'd been talking to? "It's not a prop," I said, stepping closer. "It was Grandpa's. And you know what it means to me. Why take it? What's the point?" I was fishing, hoping he'd slip up, give me something to work with. Theo's smile tightened, his eyes narrowing. "Maybe I just wanted to see if you'd fight for it for once. You're always so passive, letting everyone else take the lead. Thought I'd give you a nudge." His words cut deep, echoing every doubt I'd ever had about myself. Passive, weak, the girl who stayed in Cloverfield while Theo conquered the world. But I wasn't that girl anymore, and I wasn't falling for his bait. Before I could respond, a woman's voice interrupted. "Lila, there you are." It was Sarah, my best friend, and the Chronicle's photographer, her camera slung around her neck. "We need you for the committee photo by the fountain." She glanced at Theo, her expression cooling. Sarah had never liked him, not since he'd jokingly posted an embarrassing photo of her at a high school party. "Everything okay here?" she asked, her tone protective. "Yeah, we're good," I said, but my eyes stayed on Theo, just catching up with my cousin. Sarah raised an eyebrow but didn't push. As she led me away, I felt Theo's gaze on my back, heavy and calculating. I needed to get that compass, and whatever else was in his pocket, before he disappeared into the night. At the fountain, the committee photo was a blur of forced smiles and flashing lights. My mind was racing, piecing together the clues. The financial statement suggested Theo was in debt and eyeing the Centennial Fund. His meeting with the stranger hinted at a deal, maybe a buyer for something valuable. But the compass, it was sentimental, not worth much money. Unless I froze mid-thought, a memory surfacing. Grandpa had once mentioned a family secret tied to the compass, something about a hidden compartment he'd never shown me. I'd brushed it off as one of his tall tales. But what if Theo knew something I didn't? What if the compass held a key, literal or figurative, to his plan? After the photo, I slipped away, heading for the Chronicle's press tent. Maureen was there, packing up her laptop. "Lila, you killed it tonight," she said, but her smile faded when she saw my expression. "What's wrong?" "I need your help," I said, lowering my voice. "I think Theo's planning to steal from the Centennial Fund. I found a financial statement in my notebook, and he's acting off. He took my compass, and I think it's connected." I pulled out the statement, handing it to her. Maureen's eyes widened as she scanned it, her lips pressing into a thin line. "This is serious, Lila," she said. If he's tampering with the fund, we need evidence. But we can't accuse him without proof. It'll backfire, especially with your family involved. She handed the paper back, her expression grim. What's your next move? I'm going to get the compass back, I said, my resolve hardening. And whatever else he's carrying. But I need to be smart about it. He's meeting someone, and I think it's happening tonight. I didn't mention the compass's possible secret. I wasn't sure I believed it myself yet. But Maureen nodded, trusting me. Be careful, she warned. Theo's charming, but he's not stupid. If he's desperate, he might do something reckless. She hesitated, then added, I'll keep an eye on the fund's accounts tonight. If anything looks off, I'll call you. I thanked her and stepped back into the square. The music and laughter, now a distant hum. The crowd was thinning, families heading home. But Theo was still by the beer tent, now joined by the stranger again. They were heading toward the old mill, at the edge of town, a quiet spot away from the festivities. My gut told me this was my chance to follow them to find out what Theo was hiding. It was risky, maybe even stupid, but I couldn't let him slip away with my compass and whatever scheme he was pulling. I grabbed my phone, texting Sarah to cover for me if anyone asked, and slipped into the shadows, following the two men into the night. My true north was out there, and I was going to find it no matter what it cost. The old mill at the edge of Cloverfield loomed like a ghost in the moonlight, its weathered beams creaking as the wind swept through. I crouched behind a stack of crates, my heart hammering so loud I was sure Theo and the stranger could hear it. The Centennial celebrations music was a faint hum in the distance, the town square alive with lights while I was here in the dark, chasing a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Theo's voice carried from the mill's open doorway, low and urgent, as he spoke to the man in the suit. My phone was on silent, recording every word I could catch, but I needed to get closer. I edged forward, careful not to crunch the gravel under my sneakers. The stranger's voice was clipped professional. You're sure it's authentic? My buyer's paying top dollar, but he won't touch it without proof. Theo laughed, a nervous edge to it. It's the real deal. Been in my family for generations. You think I'd risk this if it wasn't? He reached into his jacket and I held my breath, expecting the compass. Instead, he pulled out a small folded parchment, yellowed and fragile, holding it up like a trophy. The stranger took it, examining it under a penlight. This changes everything, he muttered. If it's what you say, we're talking 7 figures. My mind raced. 7 figures for a piece of paper. I squinted, trying to make out details, but they were too far. Then Theo patted his pocket again, the one with my compass, and said, The compass is the key. It's got the mark that proves it's legit. My stomach dropped. The compass wasn't just a sentimental trinket. It was tied to whatever that parchment was, something valuable enough to pull Theo out of the financial hole I'd seen in that statement. But what was it, and why hadn't I known? I shifted for a better view, and my foot nudged a loose rock. It skittered across the gravel, loud as a gunshot in the quiet. Theo's head snapped up. Who's there? He barked, shoving the parchment back into his pocket. The stranger spun, his hand darting to his coat like he was reaching for something. Panic surged through me, but I couldn't run. Not now, not when I was this close. I stepped out from behind the crates, my hands raised, my voice steadier than I felt. It's just me, Theo. What's going on? His face went slack with shock, then hardened into something colder. Lila, what the hell are you doing here? He took a step toward me, but the stranger grabbed his arm, muttering, Handle this, or the deal's off. Theo's jaw tightened and he waved the man off. Give us a minute. The stranger hesitated, then slipped into the mill, leaving us alone under the stars. You followed me. Theo hissed, his voice low but venomous. This is low even for you. Stalking me because of that stupid compass. It's not stupid. I shot back, my anger flaring. It's mine, and you stole it. Just like you've been stealing from me my whole life. My ideas, my confidence, my place in this family. But this, I gestured toward the mill where the stranger waited. This is bigger, isn't it? You're selling something using my compass to do it. What's that paper, Theo? And don't lie to me. He looked, cornered eyes darting toward the mill. Then he laughed, bitter. That paper's a family heirloom, a land deed from 1925. It's worth millions to the right buyer. And the compass? It's got a seal that authenticates it. Grandpa never told you, because he knew you'd just sit on it. His words hit like a punch. A land deed, a secret Grandpa kept from me. The pieces click the debt, the stranger, the desperation. You're planning to steal from the Centennial Fund too, aren't you? I said. And you took the compass to make sure no one else could claim the deed. Theo didn't deny it. You don't get it, Lila. I'm drowning. This deed is my way out. He stepped closer. Give me a break. You've got your cozy little life. You don't know what it's like to lose everything. But I did. I'd lost his respect, my family's belief in me, my voice until now. I'm not letting you do this, I said. Give me the compass and the deed, now. He laughed again, shaky this time. Or what, you'll write a story about me, no one will believe you. He turned away, dismissing me like always. And that's when I pressed send. I pressed send. The voice memo I'd recorded Theo, admitting the deed, the debt, the fund was now in Maureen's inbox. I stared after him, my chest rising and falling like I'd just run a marathon. He paused halfway into the mill, turning just as I said, "The sheriff's on his way." Theo's face drained of color. Headlights cut through the darkness. A cruiser pulled up at the edge of the gravel road, its lights flashing in the still night. I didn't flinch. The sheriff stepped out, a grizzled man named Hank, who'd known me since I was a kid. He looked from Theo to me, then to the mill. "Evening," he said, calm but serious. "Someone want to tell me what's going on?" Theo opened his mouth, but I beat him to it. He tried to sell a family heirloom. And he's been managing the Centennial Fund. There's a financial statement in my bag showing discrepancies. He used my compass to authenticate the deed. Theo groaned. "You have no idea what you've done." I picked up the compass where it had fallen. The brass was scratched, the lid dented, but it still clicked open. Inside, I saw it, what Grandpa had hidden, a tiny seal engraved beneath the glass, barely visible unless you knew to look. A tree ringed by the words, Cloverfield, 1925. It wasn't just proof. It was the truth. Grandpa had left this to me. The sheriff cuffed Theo without drama. "You can explain it downtown." Just then, my parents arrived, breathless. Mom's voice cracked. "Lila, what's happening?" Dad looked from the compass in my hand to Theo in cuffs. "Is this some mistake?" I shook my head, my voice steady. Theo tried to sell a deed that belonged to the family. He forged access to my drawer, lied to you all, and nearly stole from the town. Mom's eyes welled up. "But he's always been under pressure. He didn't mean—" "No," I said, not cruelly, just firm. "He knew exactly what he was doing. You've protected him from consequences for years." Tonight, I stopped. They stood there in silence as the sheriff led Theo away. The next few days were a blur. The Chronicle published a story fact-checked, respectful about irregularities in Centennial funds under review. Theo's name wasn't in print, but everyone knew. The deed was secured in a safe. The deal was dead. Theo was released on bail, his Portland career all but over. He didn't contact me. I didn't expect him to. My parents tried. They invited me for dinner. They apologized awkwardly, hesitantly. Dad cried. But I wasn't ready. I started therapy. My therapist asked me in our first session, "Who are you when you're not chasing someone else's approval?" It took me a long time to answer. For years, I'd let Theo define me as the sensitive one, the quiet cousin who never left. I'd measured my worth against his shadow. Now I had space. I had my compass. One morning, I brought the compass to the park bench where Grandpa used to sit. I opened it, running my thumb over the worn metal. For the first time, I noticed something etched inside the lid. Just initials, HW Grandpa's. Below them, faded but clear, were 3 words I'd never seen before. "Find your north." And beneath that, "You already know where it is." That was when I stopped asking if I'd done the right thing. I knew. Theo had tried to rewrite our family's story, but I'd chosen to tell the truth even when it hurt, even when no one clapped. The town moved on, slowly. Some whispered that I was harsh, others thanked me for standing up. But no one called me passive again, not even myself.